So when I was about 16 years old, I'd been using computers for almost 6 years by that point in time, and I had sort of seen the first generation of people tossing technology, where they got a new computer and it was just the old one was out. They were just throwing things away. And back then, I mean, today we have the Mac PC debate, but back in the days it was even worse because there was Atari, there was Apple, there was Commodore. And everybody had their brand favorite. And although I was pretty loyal to Commodore, I still kind of had an interest in the other machines because I'm just a curious person. And so when I started to see people throwing machines away, I was like, no, don't throw that machine away. I'll take it, and I will keep it because I want to learn about it. That's where it started. And then around 16, I thought to myself, one day, if people are tossing these things aside like they're trash, people are going to be happy that I'm saving these things, and one day I'm going to have a museum and I'm going to show them all. And then about 5 years after that, I had kind of gotten away from, the only video gaming I had done was sort of on the computer, and somebody brought me an Atari 2600 and offered it to me for $20 with a bunch of games, and I was like, what do I want that for? Like, it's old. Like, what do I want that for? But then I looked in the box, and I saw Pitfall. And when I saw that Pitfall cartridge and I saw that I had an opportunity to go back into time, when I was 8 or 9 years old, I took that opportunity. I hooked it up, I played it, and I was like, oh yeah. I love this. So, I just started trading and I started collecting and I just decided I wanted all the gaming stuff. I had so much fun with it, and this is what happened. It got out of control.
So that was Syd, the very first day that I met him back in 2012. That was aired on episode 13, which was August of 2012. And, over the course of the next 2 years, I attended Syd's game nights. So at his museum, he would always have quarterly or semi-annual game nights where he would basically invite the whole community, and he'd have 200 or more people in his home playing video games. He always had a different theme for where he'd open up his home and the museum for it. And it was in 2014 that he had a theme called Lost Treasures, in which he brought out games that people had forgotten about. And it got me thinking, like I had been to several of them, so we'd gotten to know each other outside the show. And I said to Syd, how would you feel about doing a segment on the show each week called Lost Treasures, where we pick a game that people have forgotten about and do a little history lesson on the game itself? And of course, that was the start of Lost Treasures. And that started on May 25th, 2014 on episode 104. And all in all, Syd did 148 episodes of Lost Treasures. Wow. You're going to have to excuse me because this hit me hard. Last week we talked about it, Chico, that we didn't know what happened to Syd. He was supposed to be on the show last week.
Yeah, he was supposed to guest on Thursday, and we couldn't get a hold of him Thursday, and
right. And we find out Friday that he was in the hospital. Yeah. I still don't know now. Like, I don't know what happened entirely. Tico and I will be heading down to the visitation tomorrow on Friday. But it was a shock to me. Like, he and I are the same age. We've become very good friends over the last 6 years, since meeting him in 2012 and having him on the show. And he's been a guest host. He was like, for the 25th episode of Lost Treasures, we had him on with Dennis Dyack, remember, to talk about, sorry, it's gone out of my head now, the GameCube game that Eternal Darkness. Eternal Darkness. Yeah. We had Dennis Dyack on the show, basically to do a live, a non-pre-recorded version of Lost Treasures, which was awesome. And Syd and I went on to move Lost Treasures into its own show, Lost Treasures of Gaming. And man, I cannot tell you how grateful I was to Syd to give me that opportunity to speak to these developers one-on-one. Mark Cerny, I got to speak to, American McGee, Dennis Dyack, like that's just to name a couple of them. You know, there's so many. Steve Cartwright, one of the original founders of, I think it was Activision. It was such an amazing time, and honestly, the community has lost something in Syd that I don't think can be replaced. He had such a passion for the history of computers and for gaming. He knew the facts about everything, you know? And he could talk for hours to people about this technology. He had such a passion for not just the technologies, but for the people. And he was a gamer, like, to his core. Like, he just, it's very similar to me, where he just loves games, period, you know? When a new game comes out, he doesn't complain that it's not like what he wanted it to be. He doesn't complain that, oh, they changed it. He just, it's a new game, and I love games, so I'm going to play it. You know what I mean?
A new piece for his museum too. Like,
well,
he was just
exactly.
Well, what was the name of his favorite game? The
Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair. Thank you.
Yeah, huge.
How many
Dragon's Lair
versions
fan.
of that game do you think he owns?
Every single one of them, actually. I don't believe there is. I'm not saying that facetiously. I don't think there is a version of Dragon's Lair that he didn't own. He had all of them, right? And multiple copies. He wrote a book about Dragon's Lair and the history of it and collecting for Dragon's Lair. He has a book showing the entire collection of Dragon's Lair and Space Ace and all of the items that were ever released for it. That's how big a fan he was of Dragon's Lair.
Well, it's his gamer tag, Dirk the Daring.
Dirk the Daring is his gamer tag, you know, and I hope it stays and never to be changed. The man was only 46 years old. This was not his time. And it's been hard. I honestly, if I can just say personally, I have never lost a friend like this. So I'm sort of at that place. I don't even know how to process this right now. I've literally never lost a friend to death. You know? So the closest I've had, of course, in my family with my grandparents, my brother died 9 years ago. But I've never had a friend, and especially someone I worked with pretty much every week for the last 4 years. You know? We would speak all the time because Lost Treasures and the podcast and just working with him on stuff. So I'm going to miss him big time, let me tell you. Like, we've played games with him. You know, the four of us play games together. We've been on the show together, all four of us. You know?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to say anything? I know I keep going on.
I mean, I just keep thinking about the last game that we played together, which was Sea of Thieves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, Syd down in the basement, desperately trying to get you to go in the right frickin' direction.
Right? Oh my God.
Don't say left or right. Just give you the directions. Like, turn left. Like, what? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun experience.
That was a really fun night.
It made that game better, just the four of us being able to play together.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really was. That was a great. We played for a good solid 2 hours. You know, just having fun, and then getting completely killed by some other crew. You know, oh man! Yeah. And he and I had played, I think, the day before, where we accidentally shot each other. No, we shot a barrel just as the other walked up to the barrel, and it exploded. So I did it to him. By accident, I saw a barrel. I'm like, I wonder if they explode. And just as I press the trigger to shoot the barrel, he walks in front of the barrel, and it blows up.
Yeah.
And then later, we're just laughing about it. Later in the night, just before we're done, the exact same thing happened to me. I walked over to a barrel just as he pulled the trigger to shoot it. And I'm like, that was good retribution. He didn't mean to do it, not like just like I didn't, but. It was awesome. You know, we're laughing really, really hard about that. But
yeah, no, I remember we did that Gamerscore contest for the show.
Yeah, that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago. I actually just got the notification, the reminder memory.
Yes.
About that, and I learned a very valuable lesson about challenging a guy with the largest gaming collection in the world to a Gamerscore chat. And I still remember because I had a barbecue on the last day, and we were close, and he was up by a little bit, and I had to call to concede because I wasn't going to be able to play. He's like, "Well, it's probably for the best." I mean, he goes, "I've got another, 6 or 7 games just sitting here waiting to see what you're going to do for the last few hours. So if you're not playing anymore, that's good. Wife will be happy that I don't have to do this anymore." But it was just a fun thing. Yeah, like we almost between the two of us in I think it was a week, we did almost 50,000 gamer score between the two of us.
That's pretty much my gamer score.
Yeah.
Of 10 years.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
and
exactly.
just did the back and forth and just, shooting messages back and forth, trash talking back and forth. He'd watch something that I played and he'd pop that and back and forth. It was a great thing, and it was fun.
Syd was a big pillar of the Brantford community. He hosted all the game nights. He was on the radio. He did columns for newspapers.
CNET, I think he had a column in CNET as well.
Yeah, CNET. Mark Saltzman, who does a lot of tech videos, would always use Syd as a reference if he needed something. And I believe Victor Lucas, always used Syd for stuff for EP. He was much loved in the community, in the gaming community. He's known, and this is a hard hit on that community because I don't think anyone else can. There's no one who can replace his passion for community, his passion for games, and for the history of electronics. Just his passion to bring that history to other people. Like he wanted that museum so that people don't forget kind of where we came from. When it comes to not just computers but video games in general. Where does it go from there now? He was amazing, and he was so friendly, and he just loved everyone, and he was so humble about it all. Like, it was incredible. He's so generous. And I mean, who opens up their home to 200 plus people?
Who starts a museum?
Yeah, right.
He's the only person I've ever met. It's like, I'm going to start a museum.
Yeah.
It's going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
I'm going to start a museum because at 16 years old, as you heard when we started this, 16 years old, he saw people throwing electronics away thinking, hey, I could start a museum with this stuff. People are going to want to remember these things they're throwing away. And that's what he did. So Glenn is watching us right now. He said he met Syd in person around 2005 or 2006 when Glenn was the assistant manager at Linden Park Mall EB Games. He had heard of him, and he came in. He didn't tell Glenn who he was, but he got into a conversation with Syd about gaming, and his knowledge and passion came through. And he remembers after work asking his coworkers if he knew who that was after Syd left, and his coworker was like, "That's Syd Bolton." And when I heard more about what he was doing, I was impressed with his dedication to the industry, and in the last year, learning more about all the things he does for the city. And that's just it. He does huge things for his own city, for his community. Yeah. The passion was unmistakable. He is definitely going to be missed, and he's gonna leave a hole in this show. He leaves a hole in my heart, let me tell you. And who knew when we started Lost Treasures that our gaming archaeology himself would be our final lost treasure? So, Syd, we love you. We miss you. I think that's it. Guys, you want to say anything else?
Rest in peace, buddy.
Yeah, rest in peace, Syd. We'll miss you.
I'm gonna leave it here. We're gonna go back. We're gonna watch his very first lost treasure, just to say goodbye to our own lost treasure.
Lost Treasures with your gaming archaeologist, Syd Bolton.
Sometimes the lost treasure isn't found in local soil. Instead, it can come from far, far away, such as the land of the rising sun. In fact, the lost treasure I want to share with you today does come from Japan, and its name is Ikaruga. In my experience, when you say shooter these days, everyone starts talking and thinking about the latest Battlefield or Call of Duty. But back in the old days, shooters were two-dimensional masterpieces, and this game is no exception, although it does have a few minor 3D elements to it. Developed by Treasure in 2001 in the arcade and subsequently on the Dreamcast and GameCube, you can also find it on Xbox Live Arcade, Android, and even Windows earlier this year. Besides the fact that the game was developed by an incredibly small team of only 4 people, it has, in my mind, 2 things about it that really stand out. First, enemies are of 2 polarities, either black or white. Your ship can also be switched from black to white, only bullets of the opposite polarity can kill you, and same polarity bullets are absorbed and converted into energy that is used by the game's special weapon, the homing laser. Treasure previously experimented with colors and polarity in the title Silhouette Mirage, but really fleshed out the concept in this game. Shooting an enemy with the opposite polarity bullet will cause double damage, and so switching back and forth at the appropriate time is the key to a successful game. The other interesting mechanic is that even on the home console versions, the game supports a vertical mode. Old school arcade games use screens that are primarily vertical in nature, as opposed to the widescreen horizontal screens we have today. As a shooter, this gives you much more room for the bullets to travel. Although it can be difficult depending on your screen to put it on its side, it certainly makes a huge difference if you can. I've done this myself a few times at game night, and it's been very, very successful. For a game that was made around 13 years ago, Ikaruga still has legs. Until it hit Xbox Live Arcade in 2008, the game was only available in North America officially as a GameCube release, which has maintained its value if you try to buy it today. Now, original Dreamcast versions are going for big, big bucks as the game has obtained somewhat of a cult status. If it's not enough to try and dig up this lost treasure on its own merits, I suggest you also seek out Radiant Silvergun, since Ikaruga is actually a spiritual successor to that game. So there you have it, folks. Some great lost treasure for you, and until next time, I'm Syd Bolton, your gaming archaeologist, seeking out the greatest games you may not have heard about and bringing them to you here, right here, on the OMG Hour.
This has been an OMGNexus.com production.